Red Circle family. Welcome back to Brick by Brick, your property power purpose podcast right here on Red Circle Television. This is another solo episode, of course. I'm by myself. And on this particular episode, I want to take you guys through some of the challenges that I came across starting in the property industry. As I had mentioned in the previous episode, I started off doing flips when I entered into this industry. And let me tell you something, it was a brand new space for me, completely brand new. There are certain things that I think I could have avoided had I perhaps done things a little bit differently. But of course, you don't always get the opportunity to do things right the first time. So I just got into the industry because that is what I wanted. And that was my goal, that was my ambition. And I figured it out. I figured it out because here I am today. But in any case, so when I started with flips, I actually didn't have financing when I started that. I was somebody that didn't necessarily have a credit history, so getting a loan from the bank wasn't an easy task. I mentioned that in a previous episode as well, and the importance of having that history and how it plays a role in you being able to be approved for home loans, for example. But anyway, I didn't have that. So I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, how am I going to access funding so that I can actually start? And one of the things that I had considered at that time, of course, were investors, crowdfunding, etc. But of course, I hadn't built enough of a network at the time for me to be able to tap into that particular pool. So, of course, family then became the go-to for me. I figured out a way to put together a plan and present that to my dad, and he was more than willing to help me start. So he took out some of his savings and then he helped me start the investment journey. I bought my first purchase in Pretoria. It was of course, dilapidated home. It needed a lot of work, and it had actually been on the market for quite some time, which was a plus for me, of course, because then I was able to negotiate the price down and get my hands on that property. I remember visiting the property the first time, and it didn't even have a driveway. I think it was like muddy. It was a muddy driveway. They hadn't put any paving or even concrete to accommodate the driveway. And then walking into the house, of course, there were a lot of things that needed a lot of work. But for me, that was the perfect project. And I immediately put in an offer to purchase. And I started my journey in flipping that particular house, which is what's then acted as the springboard to all the other investments I've entered into ever since. So building or renovating was something that I thought was just going to be, it's nice. You get to, move a few things here and there and paint and, put in some tiles, etc. And then there you have it, right? No, wrong. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and I encountered a lot of issues. First of all, I had no idea what other problems existed on that property. I just took it off face value that yes, there are issues, but didn't quite consider, I don't even know why. In hindsight now, when I think about it, I'm like, hello, of course, there's going to be a whole lot of other issues in there as well. It's an old property. It's already dilapidated. So obviously you're going to find more problems. But anyway, I was just ambitious and I was ready to start, and I didn't want to have to think about anything else at that point. I just saw potential for investment and I went for it. But yes, I did encounter all of the other hidden problems that existed in that house. And I ended up having to spend a lot more than I had budgeted for. So essentially, some of the few things that I knew I needed to have in place were the contingency budget in case I come across issues. But I didn't quite realize that I would run through that pretty quickly. And that forced me to then start figuring out, what else do we do? How do we pivot in a direction that will assist me to continue to invest in this property? So for me, labor-wise, I didn't have a team, of course. So I used a lot of our men who exist in South Africa, who are on the streets, who are looking for opportunities. I went to them, and a lot of them are extremely talented. It's just that they don't have opportunities job-wise. So I reached out to a lot of, the guys on the street who were painters and welders and, for tiling, etc. And they did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal. So I project managed the entire thing. I also worked together with a fantastic couple, Charlene and her husband, and her husband was an electrician, which was, a plus for me because, electrical work can be very, very complicated. So finding somebody who was great with electrical work, I think was a huge benefit for me. So they also then stayed on actually after that to other projects that I embarked on. And they assisted me in so many different ways. I mean, Charlene, first of all, she is a property agent, so she sort of understands that space pretty well. And it was actually at that moment that I realized that I need to start networking with people who are within this space from all, sorts of industries that sort of encompass the built environment, from your real estate agents to your plumbers, your electricians, your tilers, etc., and even the shops, your CTMs and all your other shops where we get our materials. I needed to begin to build relationships there, and that's what I started to do. So just off the cuff, I just figured, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this. If it's going to make things a little bit easier for me, I'm going to start building these, networks in order for me to be able to have access to people that have experience. That in itself was a challenge because I'm not an extrovert by no means at all. And I needed to sort of push myself outside of my comfort zone and put myself out there and make it so that I can begin to have those relationships and start building a little bit of my own, workforce in a sense. So that house, we started, with the kitchen. We completely changed that up. We changed up the kitchen. We retiled the entire home. We did all of the bathrooms, all of the bedrooms, and the backyard, the front yard. We paved the driveway. All of those requirements were done, but quickly ran out of money. And when I started running out of money, I then decided, okay, I'm going to put tenants in because at that point it was good enough to get some tenants into the house. And once they got in there, at least I was able to then start recovering some of the money that I had begun to lose actually. So it was eating away at my profits, essentially, the fact that I didn't have enough capital to continue. So putting in the tenants allowed me to start collecting those funds back and putting them back into the project and slowly continuing with the renovations, fixing the roof, getting the foundations checked to make sure that everything is in order. I, then was also able to pay some of the lovely gentlemen that were working with me, because I did, of course, get to a point where paying salaries became an issue. So that really helped. And I think you have to sort of be able to figure it out in that way, to say to yourself, what else can I do to make sure that I do not completely fold when it comes to this investment? Due precisely to the fact that I had very little experience. And I think in hindsight now, knowing the things that I know, I would have approached things a little bit differently. First of all, one of the things that I would have done differently is get the home inspected. Doing a property inspection before you buy is one of the best strategies that you can implement, because right away you have a report that tells you exactly all of the issues that exist in that home. They're able to get on the roof, they're able to check the pipes, they're able to check the electrical work, etc. And in that way, your budget will make better sense moving forward with that project. And you can also negotiate the price, right? The asking price. So that's one of the things that I would have done differently for sure. I would have gotten an inspector into that home almost immediately. But it's okay, because those lessons have taught me a lot. And a lot of those things I am using today as mitigating factors. And I think sometimes you just have to start from a hard place. You have to start from a place where things aren't necessarily perfect, and you build from there. I mean, even podcasting, it's not necessarily something that I'm familiar with, but here I am, right? And we are figuring it out together. So sometimes you just have to plunge into it. And I think property is one of those things where experience plays a huge role. So once you're in there and you're gaining the experience and you're going through all of the challenges, all of the hurdles, building your team slowly, those are the things that build you ultimately and make you into the property investor, developer that you wish to become. So throwing yourself into that space, because there aren't curriculums out there that are necessarily going to teach you that. A lot of it you learn on the ground. Well, today there are a few courses that you can take from some of the universities, but let me tell you, being on site and actually working on a project practically, that trumps any theoretical, lessons that you'll get from a book. So getting into it is actually the best way to learn how to deal with challenges, how to, deal with people that you're working with on site. That experience is golden. Yeah, so I managed to actually finish off the house, even though my tenants who were living in that house at that time did bring about a few other problems. I was still able to sort of get out of that situation as well. We put the property back in the market and we were able to sell it for a very good profit, which then allowed me to reinvest those funds into the next project. And from there, it's just been, scaling to one project and the next project. And in 2020, I actually was preparing to start a new project in Pretoria East. And that fell through because another developer came on board and sort of took over that land and implemented a totally different strategy there, and one that we weren't prepared to actually continue with. So we pulled our funds from that specific space, and I decided I wanted to enter into the property development space. Again, another very new space for me. I think the great thing about property is that there's so many different strategies that you can implement, and you're not going to know, how things are going to pan out with each strategy that you implement. There are always going to be some hurdles along the way. But I think from your first project to your second project, the third project, you begin to understand certain things that sort of prepare you now for any challenges that may come along the way. And like I said before, that experience is what makes you into the property investor or the property developer that you want to become. You just have to plunge into it and work it out. And that's it. So moving into the property development space, brand new. And of course, there have been challenges in this space as well. Learning all of the different requirements before you get into a project is something that has been brand new for me. And a lot of it has, caused delays and very costly delays as well. So it eats away at your budget. Slowly but surely, you start, realizing that you're running out of funds. But I think one of the things that have played a massive role in assisting me now is understanding that having mentorship and having that network can really make things so much easier. So much easier. So starting out in the property development space, I knew right away I need to start getting closer to people who are in that space as well. Get your builders or even your town planners or other property developers who are in that space and who have experience to be part of this journey, because I knew at that stage that that experience is what is going to help me to continue up until the finish line. And it has helped tremendously. It has played a huge role in assisting me to get to where I am currently. So our new project, which should be actually launching this year, 2026, I am hoping, we are going to really start seeing an evolution of, Red Circle Properties into the next space. And I'm very, very excited for that. I'm very excited for that. So, yeah, so challenges, that's something that you're going to encounter regardless of the strategy that you're implementing. You just have to figure out a way to pivot, figure out a way to mitigate those risks, figure out a way to have your finances, better placed, have your contingency budgets, understand, how to work out your budgets, Excel sheets and all the different formats, etc., just to keep yourself accountable for all of the money that you're spending on your projects. Building a network, a very strong one, having your mentors in place, whether it's business mentors or a mentor that is within the industry that you're in. And I've been lucky to have both. So yeah, guys, challenges are something that are inevitable. You just have to figure out a way to get out of them. And fortunately, I've managed to mitigate some of the challenges that I have come across. So make sure that you are subscribed to Brick by Brick. I want to be able to share as much as possible, and hopefully this does resonate with some of you who are interested to enter into this industry. And while there are a lot of things that perhaps I may not be able to tell you, because those are experiences that you will experience in your own personal journey, I hope that what we are going to be able to provide will be helpful enough so that you have, a platform that you can refer to from time to time, and hopefully that will assist you in making your journey a little bit easier as well. So yeah, guys, so that's it. Make sure that you're subscribed. Please subscribe, guys. Let's get those numbers up. Hit the notification bell so that you do not miss a single episode from our podcast. And we are going to be adding more and more to this channel as well. So it's not just going to be our podcast. We're going to be taking you behind the scenes on our projects. I'm going to introduce you to, some of the events that I attend as well. So make sure that you stick with us here, and also follow us on all of our social media channels. I will link all of the links in the description box. So make sure that you click on that, you follow us, you become part of the family, and yeah, we continue together on this journey. And yeah, that's it. So I love you guys, and I hope that the year is going to be a very successful one. And I'm looking forward to bringing you more and more experts on this podcast for you to be able to have a reach and have a network that you can begin building as well. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.